Before starting, I come from big tech. So I worked at Google and Yahoo, and I actually spent 11 years in San Francisco, all in big tech. So before I start, I have to put it out there. All right, so now I work for Commerzbank. The topic is AI, ML, cloud, hype versus reality, because I feel there's a lot of hype in a lot of tech that is coming out of different parts of the world, China and US specifically. But let's focus on the data, because the biggest still underlying enabler of technology or in technology solutions that are driving industries today is data. If the data is not there, it doesn't matter what kind of technology you have, it will not get you anywhere. Data is the still driver of technology and all kinds of industries today. So if you look at different components of the applications of data, and this is quite industry agnostic until we hit compliance, but in terms of use of data across different manufacturing industries, it's essentially machine data that is important, that's driving new business models. And is probably quite a understandable topic that in Germany this is pretty much up and coming, not only up and coming, but also established, moving fast, because IoT is driving quite a bit of momentum over here. In terms of the digital business models, obviously data is the driver of a lot of the digital business models that comes out of Silicon Valley. Obviously Google based the search business model on data, and we know all the other players in there. Compliance is extremely important. That is basing a lot of things on the data to drive AML sanctions and all sorts of solutions around this. And the use of technology to actually make AMLs and sanctions and all other different solutions, you need to have actually high quality and clean data. And even the definition of high quality, clean data differs based on what part of solution you're looking at. But let's say you need to have clean data before you do anything else with technology in this area as well. Data on its own, though, is not enough, and because you have to basically take the data and make sense out of that data. Making sense out of that data is also not quite enough nowadays, because we have been making sense of data since 50s. How many of you know AI actually started as an academic field in 1956? Machine learning started in 1975. Deep learning is 1983. All of them use data. Okay, so we are not talking about a lot of things that are different as of today, that's so new, that is creating so much hype. Everything comes from the core, which is data, and trying to understand the data and make sense out of it. So this is basically simplification of the world that we live in, I live in, my team lives in, which is we have a lot of data that's coming in from all different parts of the operation, all different kinds of interactions with the customers. We have data, and machines create data, and we then try to turn those data pieces into services that people make or pay for and make use of. Right? So that's the gist of the world we live in. And what matters, though, is you have the data, you make sense of the data, you look at what has happened with the data you collected, and you try to predict what will happen with the data you have. What matters at the end is what you do with that and how it creates a feedback on this particular process. Okay, so implementation is important. I'll come back to this. And in a lot of the conversations I had so far in the banking industry, implementation is what matters, not necessarily the technology itself, from my perspective. So what's the hype with AI then? We have data, we have analytics. It has been around for so many years, decades. Okay, so what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is, if this was the computer, you based your AI, which is on the left lower end side, if that was the computer, you tried to actually replicate the human mind, which is the definition of AI in 1956. It started with the IBM researchers in the East Coast, in a university, in a garden. They said, can we use this computer to actually replicate human brain? And lo and behold, obviously, that they realized they couldn't do this. And lo and behold, as of today, with any technology we have today, we still cannot do it. Okay, so if anybody tells you that AI can actually create a human being and replicate it, and you create robots that will replicate a human being, that is, as of today, technologically not possible. Okay, if you have an example or counter-argument, we can discuss about it. I haven't seen it. It doesn't exist. It will not exist in the next 50 years. Okay? So that is the hype. Because a lot of people think that we're going to be killed by the robots, overtaken by the robots, or replaced by the robots that acts like us. But how can you actually create a robot without knowing? We currently today don't fully understand how our mind works. So if you cannot understand that, how can you create a robot to replicate your mind? Not possible, right? So that is the hype piece. Now then, what are we talking about? We are talking about a technology that makes us closer to what we thought we could do with technology in mimicking human behavior, and that is the cloud, right? Because you went from technology like that to a technology that is hundreds and thousands of times much more capable than that in your pocket, in your hand. That's what you have now. And it is connected to everywhere in the world. Wherever you are in the world, you carry that computational power with you. That is what happened. And that enables us to process way more data, way faster, in real time, wherever you are, at any place in the world. Okay? So cloud is important because cloud allows us to scale. As a company, as an industry, it allows us to scale. It allows us to give services to people wherever they are in the world. That is the positive part. And my perspective is that without understanding cloud and using cloud, you cannot compete in the world today. That's almost becoming impossible. So, from my perspective, again, what are we doing in the bank? What are we driving within the bank, digitizing the bank? What do we mean by digitizing the bank in the first place? So digitalization is a combination of these. We do all of these within the bank. Okay? However, the hardest part of digitalization is not being able to do all of this or use technology or adopt new technology. It is changing the mindset. Okay? Changing the mindset of the people to be more digital is harder than actually deploying a cloud solution. That's what we are doing. So back to machine learning, a lot of important discussions also around explainability then. That's another one thing I forgot to mention is AI is actually machine learning. Okay, there is nothing a whole lot different than deep learning, machine learning, AI. AI is an umbrella field. AI is a general perception, understanding of intelligence and creating intelligence artificially. That's why it's artificial intelligence. But at the core, as of today, like I said before, the technology we have today is machine learning, and that's it. Okay? So if we talk about machine learning, then when you're trying to control or understand AI, you have to deep dive into machine learning. What does machine learning mean? How do you control machine learning? How do you regulate machine learning in such a way that AI is ethical? So now, again, I will have a couple of comments here, and I don't want to go on forever because we have to cut it short. And trust me, I can talk days on this. Ethics of AI is a confusing term, as confusing as intelligence of an artificial technology. Okay, so the confusion starts from the actual term of artificial intelligence, because we're calling something artificial and technology and code-driven intelligent. That is the first mistake we make. We associate a human characteristic, human understanding, human behavior to something we created, and we tend to do this a lot. I have my car, I love my car. My car is my baby. Oh, this is not a baby, it's a car. It cannot be a baby, come on, right? So we actually lose the war with the terminology that we start with. We call it intelligent. But intelligence comes from how we grow up, our culture, communication, how we educate ourselves, how we behave, our consciousness and mind. That is the time we have to step back and say, what are we regulating? What is the ethics of it? Is it the code we have written that we need to regulate, or is it the person who wrote the code that we regulate? And I believe in the latter. The human being who writes the code has the responsibility to actually do the right thing, because it's not the code that does the wrong thing or takes an action. It is the human being who takes an action with the outcome of that code, including AI decisioning. You will say, hey, autonomous AI is important. Okay, well, somebody wrote the first code that created autonomous AI. That guy is the one who's responsible. Kind of simplification of things, but. So complex models, as the models become more self-learning, the complexity becomes higher. And there, I kind of put more importance on, I wouldn't say I reduced the importance on explainability, but I had a few conversations with different parts of the industry where some people say explainability is more important. I say, as I started in the first slide, if data is the core of everything, without data you don't need to explain anything because the model is not going to work. You don't have data, you don't have a model. I say, bias in the data and how that data is representing the reality is the most important thing. Okay, so that needs to be taken care of. There are other things about modeling and machine learning. A model is a model. A model still today is you get the data, put the data into the model, you create an output that is a score or prediction or something. It is still linear. You feed data into a model, you get an output. Okay, so you basically have issues when you do that, but these issues are scientifically known and continuously instigated, inspected, researched, and published. We have to pay attention when we are building things, writing things, using technology. What is the outcome of that technology and what's going to do, rather than technology for the sake of technology itself. Right, so AI can never replace this.